Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And, there was some debate in my head between putting up this video now versus waiting and putting it up in like 2 or 3 days because, Jubilee is still broken. But I figured I'd put it up now, that way we can just get it on the books and you can see the teams that I used. Because, right now, the burn doesn't work. And the burn can do a lot of extra point damage, so maybe this changes come, Tuesday or Wednesday. Who knows? And then, that's just more content, right? It's easy. So, we're going to put up this video now, and we're going to have 2 teams that we're going to take into boss battles. So right now, we're sitting at 61.7 and 60.1. And obviously, once boss battle is fixed, these scores will go up. I don't know if my ranking will go up because that means all the other people are going to go up too once they redo it. So, we'll see how that goes. But at least I'm still number 3, which I also don't expect to stay. But yeah, let's get started. I'm going to show off like the meta team with all the new units, and that's going to be like the first run for each stage. And then I'm going to go into each fight with no meta 2.0, no fire 2.0 units to speak of, and see, if you didn't summon or you got shafted and you did something anyways, what you can do with like the old fire team and some other units that you can throw on. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, so here's the first team I used for Boss Battle 1, which is the AOE stage. So ideally you'd want to have a bunch of AOE units that can do lots of damage that are buffed up, and we mostly have that, right? We've got Toa, we've got Ifrit attached to her. You could put Ramaris down there instead and maybe take part of her 6% attack trait on top of Toa's attack trait. That could work out. But for this run I didn't, because I thought my health would be lower. But, I mean, if you have some good fire units, you won't take that much damage. And you could probably keep the trait on, but yeah, whatever. We've got the new Shizu for support, Guy for the alt buff, more fire damage. We've got the Hero for just an extra turn, right? That's the only reason she's here, because Violet's already giving herself crit. We really want to prioritize the fire attack and the alt buff more than anything, because most of this fight, you are crit sealed. So you want to make sure that, 1, Violet is not up front on, turn 2 going into turn 3. Otherwise you get crit pierce sealed, and that's no fun for her. And then we've got Velzard in the back, because this round starts with a Velzard 2-orb steal hand. And then we've got Violet in the back, because I'm going to use Velzard to steal for Violet. So let's go ahead and start this up and fast forward a bit into the actual match. It works out this run fairly well, I'm not going to lie. We get really, really, really lucky because, turn 1, you've got the 4-2 spread. So you could either put Velzard up front where Guy is and just have her immediately steal, and then put 2 other units in the back, like that's totally fine, or you just have her come in. But since she's the faux DPS as well, I wanted to have a good fire unit attached to her, so that's why I had her in the back. So here, we've swapped out, we've stolen, and then we've swapped in Violet for her 6-orb, which will definitely get her ult, and also get us protection gauge on turn 2, so we're looking good right here. And then, we get extra lucky, because we have 3 Shizu orbs with another one coming, which means that if we swap Velzard in for Violet, it'll be 4... or no, it'll be, if we swap Velzard in for Shizu, and then swap Violet out for Guy, we're going to pull that extra Velzard orb in, and then we could just steal. And then have a full hand of Velzard, and have her set up for her ult as well. So we're going to use Violet's buffs now, and the rewind, to take advantage of a full hand again. And then we're going to get Guy out of here for Violet. And now there's the 4-2 again. We'll use Toa. That'll give us 45 points, which is exactly enough that I need for the steal, I believe. And it is. So, okay. So we lucked out right there. That hasn't happened to me on any of the runs until this one. So there's a 6-hand of Violet turn 1, a 6-hand of Velzard turn 2. Works pretty well. This is all orange, which means Velzard's going to have a double ult, which is good because that's just extra AoE damage we can do off of the nuking turn. So, and now the rewind kicks in. The orbs aren't really too great. We have 3 Guy orbs, which doesn't really get us a lot, and it doesn't get us protection gauge either. But this is turn 2, which means that turn 3 is going to hit, and then both the hero and Guy are going to have their protection traits on turn 3 kick in, which means that we're actually going to get protection trait next turn, or protection next turn. But there is the crit and pierce seal, which is fine because Velzard doesn't run off those. She runs off attack and alt buff. So there's no point in using the hero's crit buff right now because it wouldn't do jack shit to anybody up front. So we're going to bring Violet up front. I don't know why we brought Violet up front though. I'm confused. I think we're full on nuking right here. Yeah, we're going to nuke because it's a 6 orb send. We've used Velzard's attack and crit buff. Violet already has her crit, pierce, and attack buff on. So we'll do decent damage here. We have max points after this. We'll get a decent amount of Toa. But I end up not... I think... Do I send the ult here? Am I banking on getting more Violet? I think I'm banking on getting more Violet orbs. So we're going to send both ults here. Velzard will have another one. 29, 30k-ish is okay. Violet does 50k. Okay. And then some Velzard follow-ups, another 200%. She's now got 20% attack, which is good. So that went up from 11k to 17k. Now, I mean, it's kind of a toss-up because we want ults with Guy and Violet as well on this turn, or an ult with Shizu, Velzard, Violet. You know, one of the two. So right here we got to play around. Like we have 2 Violet orbs. We have 2 Velzards. We're going to have 2 Guy orbs when we swap them out, so we can swap out Velzard for Shizu. That'll be another full 6-hand send if we use Toa, which should get us both Guy and Violet's ults. Should. We're really banking on this, though. And we also have 2 turns left, so now we can use the Pierce buff alongside Violet. And we have 100 points, which means that we're going to get a lot of points back on this turn. So we're going to make sure that we keep Violet's attack buff on, because it's about to run out. And we're going to put it on now because we're going to have an excess of points anyways. So now here, we got a full 6-hand send. We should get another Toa out of this full send. And we do end up getting Violet and Guy's ults. So that means we'll have Velzard's ult in the back, Violet's ult, Guy's ult. And then we have Shizu already up front, which means she can give the fire buff to at least Guy and Violet, which is more important than I would say giving it to Velzard, because we also don't have enough points to use Velzard's attack buff again, because we've already used it once and it's overcost now. It was, what, 5 points less, it'd be fine, but it's not, so unfortunate. So there's the fire buff right here from Shizu. Now we can get her out for Velzard, and then we'll have triple ult, we'll have a full 6 orb send because we're going to use Toa. We'll get extra crit damage because I've got that charm on Toa as well. And now we have enough points to use the ult buff, and that's it. Like I said, if Velzard's buff was 5 points less, we'd be dandy. But it isn't. So she's still getting 50% ult damage from Guy, but not her 20% attack, which is fine because we already used it earlier. So there's that damage, there's that damage. Violet hits 154, and then our follow-ups do really, really good damage right here. And I think she does like 50k? Yeah, just about exactly 50k. So we're just at 782,000 damage right there, which is fairly good. Fairly good. This team runs pretty well. I got really, really lucky, and we got a sweet counter that put us over 800,000 damage, because Violet still has all of her buffs. So we end up with a score of 61,789, which is currently my highest score. So... could you score higher than this? Oh yeah, if you had more dupes in Violet, if you had more dupes in Velzard, you had more dupes in Toa. Maybe if I had the Romerus trait active as well, maybe that would have done a little bit more. But this is a fairly good run, and I'm rank 4 with this, and I'm beating a bot, right? So it works. So let's move on to a team where you are not quite as lucky in your summons. Alright, so here's my budget team, right? We've got Hakuro instead of Toa, who's really, the only difference is he's going to give you less skill points on the oranges. It's fine. He's still making you oranges and giving you 40 skill points. Still got the hero. We've got Fire Milim for her crit and her single target. We've got Guy here still. We've got the OG Fire Benimaru for his AoE and his attack buff and his orange buff. And then we have Earth Benimaru back, behind my face, who is one of another Orb Stealer, so we can still get a full 6-hand send on turn 1. And, because he came out with, Earth Hakuro, he's also got that sweet orange buff and orange damage. So Benimaru has his attack skill where it's his own attack and then orange damage, and then Earth Benny has all gauge orange gain and orange damage. So we have 2 orange buffers here. So this should work out, you know, okay. No, it's not going to score you great because none of these units do as much damage as Violet or Velzard. So just straight up. But I'm pretty sure we gotta, there we go. We gotta start here. So opening turn, it's still 4-2 spread, so we can bring Earth Benny in. For this one, I probably should have put Earth Benny up front and put Milim in the back, or Guy in the back, so they could have another fire unit attached to them for more DPS. That's my bad, but you know, hopefully you learn from that and you can do that. So now here's the swap. Here's full hand of Benimaru. He's our best AOE DPS on this team right now, and we're only doing 46k or 4600 damage, which again, this is a budget team. Don't expect to get high placement with this. This is just so you can get on the board and, you know, do okay. And obviously, if you have any of the Fire 2.0 units, swap them in for whatever their counterparts are from like this team versus the first team, and you'll do a lot better than what this team can do. Maybe not as good as the first team, but you'll do better. So here we've got Benimaru's ult, obviously, which is good. So now we've used the rewind, and we're going to bring Fire Milim in for Hero, and then we're going to bring Earth Benny in for Fire Benny, and then we're going to use his orange buff. So that's 35% gauge and what, 20% damage? I remember, if I forget what it is, but it's good, you know. Extra gauge increase from that, plus the 30% gauge increase or protection gauge increase we get from the rewind, makes us, you know, these oranges give a lot more protection than what they would normally do. So there's a full send. We have Milim's ult. I don't know. I think we have Guy's ult as well. Yeah, we do. So perfect. We have 3 ults ready to go. But this team has a limited amount of buffs, right? There's only like the Guy buff and the Milim crit buff, and then Benimaru's attack buff. And because these 2 are up front, I want them to not have that crit seal on, because we want to crit with them to do maximum damage, which means we're kind of stuck leaving them up front right now, because these buffs will wear off on the final nuking turn, which is good to know, but it means that you're limited to 4 or 3 orb sends, you know, for another 2 more turns, which really doesn't help your score. So right here, we're just going to send 2 Milims, and we're going to pray we get more Milim, because if we can get her a double ult, then we're actually going to look pretty good, and we can at least send off 1 extra ult. So here, we do get an extra Milim orange card, which you do that, and then you do her ult, and those will combine into a second ult. We already have a full Hakuro gauge, we have full points, so really this is the only play that I could do here. All those Guy orbs have not given us his ult. I know you can't see it over, you know, my face cam, but it wasn't going to work. So now we're on turn 1, the crit and pierce debuffs are leaving, so now we're free to buff. Thankfully, we have 1 Earth Benny orb, that means we can swap in Fire Benny. So there's the ult buff and the crit resistance down, and then Fire Benny's going to come in for Earth Benny, and then we can use Hakuro. And well, first we can use his own buff, so there's 30% attack and 10% to the orange damage, which will help everybody. And then here's Hakuro. I probably should have put the crit damage charm on him too, huh? Yeah, probably. Alright, and then there's the actual crit. Benimaru's debuff doesn't matter, it's like pierce resistance, or pierce power down or something. So now we're just going to ult, and we're going to find out what final score we get. It would be a lot better if we had Benimaru normal orbs, because, you know, he's got his attack buff, and those would have done more damage than the Milim and Guys, but whatever. So 37k for Benimaru and his ult. Not great, but, you know, you make do with what you got. Milim does 16-3 on her 200% orb, and that is the end. We are just shy of 400,000, so literally almost half of our first team's score. So there's a very, very big power gap in between Fire 1 and Fire 2. But it, you know, if that's all you got, it's what you got, and it's what you got to use. So at least you understand like what you should be doing here. If you don't have an orb stealer for like Earth Benny or the new Velzard, Light Daggerel is an option because he also steals orbs. Otherwise, you're just going to have to send 4 orbs the first turn and pray that you get a good hand next turn. I don't really know what else to tell you there. It's just, you know, if you don't have the units, you don't have the units. So that's it for Boss Battle 1. So good team and a not so good team. Let's move on to Boss Battle 2 now. Alright, so Boss Battle 2, here is the first team that I am using. We've got Toa and Ifrit again. Veldora does a lot more damage than what the AoE stage does, so having Ramuris here, probably not the best idea if your gear's not great, because you're going to fall under that, and Ramuris isn't buffing fire damage at all, so you'll just be losing double. So I'd rather have Ifrit up here for the guaranteed 5% fire attack than maybe 6% attack that'll drop away. So that's why we did that. We've got Shizu again, we've got the hero, we've got Water Shuna for our ult buffer this time, not Guy. And that's because she's got that blue orb change, because on this stage, greens are nerfed after turn 1, which, you know, just makes me, again, question why the hell Benimaru is a green orb changer. But Benimaru is also here being a single target DPS, faux DPS, and then Violet, obviously, is our main nuker. So, let's go ahead and start this up and fast forward. So, ideally, you'd want to send a couple ults. Like, you don't want to just save for the final hand. You'd want to have, like, at least 1 or 2 extra ults to send in the middle, and that's all dependent on how lucky you get with orbs. But it does open with a Benimaru orb change, so, I mean, if you have them, then go ahead, use it. Again, the burn doesn't work right now, so that secondary effect means nothing. But now we can send a full hand of greens, which will, 1, get us protection, and 2, get us a decent amount of points. So 77 points, pretty good right there. So let's send this, and then we will move on. So 12,000 on that, and then we get a 3 and 3 kind of spread. The greens are now nerfed, so that's not great, but there's 3 violets, which means that we can get a decent amount of ult gauge off that. So, we're going to use the orange damage buff and the instant damage. We're going to use both of Violet's buffs. We're going to use Toa, and then we're going to send this full hand of orange. That will get Benimaru's ult and Violet's ult, which is good, because I want multiple ults with Violet here, because she's our strongest damage dealer. So that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to try and build up for a Violet ult now, which we are, and then we're going to try and rebuild that up on the last turn to nuke, you know, with everything on her. So here, turn 3, we're going to bring the hero in for Violet here, because this will give us quite a bit of Benimaru, and then we're just going to send all of this, and that will get us close to another Benimaru ult alongside another Toa, which is good. So we're going to send this ult, extra damage, so 25-4, not the greatest thing in the world, but hey, extra damage is extra damage. 9,000 on that hit, the burn, whatever. Rewind kicks in, and we get a decent hand. We get 4 Shizus, which will get us her ult as well. So that's pretty good. So we could do that, or we could do, like, we could bring in Shuna for orb changing, which we do. We actually swap out Benny because Benny has no orbs here, and I want to make sure he gets his ult back. So making sure that he's in the back to come in and take some orbs from whoever is up front is important, which is also good because he wouldn't have gotten any orbs this turn either. So it's very good that we swapped him out, because then we would have been stuck, because this is, you know, we have 2 more turns left. He wouldn't have had a chance to get another ult. So we're going to use Shuna's orb change here, in the hopes that we can get a double Toa meter, because I want to do triple buffs on this nuke turn. I want the fire buff, I want the ult buff, and I want the hero's crit buff on 2 of my units. So, if we send all the Benimarus, we will not get protection. If we send 4 blues, we will be very close to protection, which means that we unfortunately have to sacrifice that Shizu ult, because that will get us double protection. So we're going to sacrifice Shizu's ult here, which is unfortunate, because, you know, I would have liked that to be buffed. But, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And having the double protection is a lot better than having 1 less big-time buff next turn for a Shizu AoE. So that's why we did that. We'll miss out on the pierce resistance down, but, you know, this hand works out fairly well. So now we've got 100 points. Double Toa, we have a Benimaru ult, which is good, and we also have a Violet ult in the back, which is very good, and now we can triple buff. So there's the ult buff from Shuna. We did, you know, take advantage of both of her skills this run, which is great. So now we're going to bring in Violet for Shuna. who has the most orbs, right, being 2. So we're going to take 1, and we're going to, she's going to have 1 extra. And then we can swap Shizu out for her crit buff. Well, actually, we'll use the fire buff now, and then swap her out for the hero, and then use the crit buff. So therefore, both Benimaru and Violet will have all 3 major buffs, crit, ult, and fire. Violet has her buffs as well, which is the guaranteed crit, guaranteed pierce. We also will have the 15% pierce power from Shizu. So we're going to use that now before we take her away. Important. So that's another buff on Violet. And then we bring the hero in, and Violet also has her 20% attack. So Violet has like 6 buffs going on right now, I think. And Benimaru has 3, because he's not going to pierce unless he does it naturally. So, and also Benimaru does okay damage. I think it does like 100k, which is respectable. So we'll send Benny first because he lowers the defense of enemy units, which means that Violet will hit just a little bit harder. So yeah, 100-something K, 178k. Unfortunately, the hero has type disadvantage, so she doesn't do a lot of damage. But this 200% orb, 51k, is very, very good. So 648.9 is our ending score, and it gives us, I believe that's my high score of 60k. Yeah, 60,194 is my current high score. So that run went fairly well. And again, you can get a higher score if you get multiple Violet ults off instead of like the Shizu ult or the Benimaru ult. If your units have more dupes, like Violet gets that extra, 35% once you get her to 100 because it's the ability release and then the extra like trait for the extra 5%, so which means you'll hit quite a bit harder. But that's my run, and I'm pretty happy with it, and I don't really feel like I'm going to come do it again until they fix Jubilee. So that's the first run. Let's use the budget team again for the second run. Alright, the last team, like I said, is another budget team. We've got Hakuro and Ifrit. The hero is still here. Fire Gopta, his bitch ass is here. Guy is still here. Or Guy is here now, sorry. Milim is here for her crit and her single target damage. And then we've got free-to-play Aaron as our orb changer, since, I'm assuming in this team you don't have the new Benimaru, of which case, use him. But she will suffice. He does have magic resistance down, so she will do shit for damage, but she's really only here for the orb change, turn 1, because it's kind of important. You can use other units, you can use Water Soe, you could use Space Ranga, there are a number of other orb changers that you could put in place of Aaron. I just chose her because she's free, and so she's available to most people that have grinded for her or have the ability to grind for her. But our main damage dealers here are going to be Gopta, because he's got his little 15% crit damage buff, alongside Milim giving crit, alongside Guy giving the alt buff. So, this team, again, is a budget team, but it can work if it's the best you got. So let's go ahead and jump in, fast forward to the first run. So here, we're going to bring Aaron in for the orb change turn 1, and then that's pretty much everything she'll do for the rest of the fight. So there's that, and then we'll bring Fire Milim in for Aaron, who is good because we also have another Aaron orb coming in next turn, which means that Milim is guaranteed at least 1 orb. So here's 6, 37, 41, 47. Definitely no Violet, but again, make do with what you got. This hand is not the greatest thing in the world, so we're going to end up using Hakuro, which will give us an ult for both Guy and Milim right here, which is good. Thankfully, he doesn't crit seal us or pierce seal us, which we're not piercing anyways. No real debuffs happen on our end, so we don't have to worry about that, so we can just freely swap people in and out without having to worry too much about not having the debuffs on for the nuke turn. So 13-6 right there. Guy and Milim's ult looking pretty good. We have 100 points. I think we bring the hero in now for one of them. So yeah, we use the orb changing because we have 2 orb changers here, right? 3 orb changers technically, but Milim is a green to blue single and Gopta is double orange to blue, which this works out perfectly where we can change the oranges, swap them out, change the green, swap Milim ult, use the rewind, and then bring Milim out, and then we have an entire hand of blues plus the rewind, which is going to be more than enough to get us double Hakuro right here. Of which we don't really need double Hakuro because we're only doing double buffs, right? Because we're already lowering crit resistance with Guy's ult buff, and we're already giving crits with Milim. So there's no real point in trying to save for the hero's crit buff. I think it might be like 10% more resistance down on the enemy, but I wouldn't like be going out of your way to get 3 of those off. So you'd ideally want all 3 units up front who are fire units doing the nuke damage, and for that, you know, there's no real point of having the hero up there and then immediately buffing with Milim again. If it works out, then certainly go ahead, but I'm just going to tell you not to shoot for it. So, right here we have a Gobta ult and a bunch of orbs, so we're just going to swap Guy in for this. We're just going to... I don't even know what I was doing here. Oh, no, I know what I was doing. I was bringing Guy in because if we can send this, because we have double Hakuro, because again, we don't need it, by sending all these orbs, we can freely send a Guy ult and still have enough for another one next turn, which, you know, it's extra damage. Again, it's an AoE, it doesn't do a lot, but extra damage is extra damage. So now we are on the final turn after he's done ulting us. So here we go. And yeah, hero's taken a lot more than 75% HP, so we would no longer have the Rommer's trait, in theory, right? So here we go. We're on the final turn. Let's go ahead and use Gobta's crit buff, the ult buff, and then we'll use Hakuro to give us enough points to use Milim's crit buff. And then we will call this a day for, I guess, this Jubilee video. And then we'll probably redo it on Wednesday or something. Because this, again, is up until, what, the 27th or something? So we've got over a week left for this Jubilee. So there's plenty of time for me to make another boss battle once they fix it. Because maybe the strategies change. Maybe they do change and, you know, burn is more important than some of the other buffs. Who knows? We didn't use hero at all on this. We didn't bring Benny. Well, we brought Benny, but we didn't bring Benny for like the AoE stage. So who knows? But our final score ends up being 32-4, which again is just about half of our good team score. But budget team, you get budget score. So that's it. Again, you can freely swap any 2.0 fire units for these units that you saw on this team if you can't really run it, but you have some extras. You got Lucky, you got Violet. Great. Use her, because she's going to do a fuck ton more damage than the other ones are. So let me know if this video helped you out. I will put up a second boss battle video once they fix it, probably towards the end of the week. But yeah, that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you later.